everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's on the Tube, or welcome back if this is your... Fuck, what episode number is this? I have to do the files again. The 12th Season 2 episode review for Nancy Drew. Hope you're all doing well. It's been a long week for me. Next week's going to probably be the longest week of the year so far. If you see me being so more tired than normal, I apologize. So with that being said, let's get through it. Let's get to this episode. I like the emotional core of this week. It was all about family, mostly between Ace and his recently discovered brother. I think their dynamic is very innocent and very different from your normal brother to brother realization stories. It's not that common, but they got their own unique spin on it, and we got other developments going on throughout. This mainly felt like, besides the Ace, I want to call this the Ace Brothers episode, I want to say, because like everything else is kind of like just, we're continuing the storyline and we're seeing where things are progressing. So it's kind of like just like another one of those episodes of the larger story that like we're making slow headway, but in reality this is like mostly focused on something different from the main story, and I think they really pulled it off. I think this is just another, it's not even a filler episode per se, but this was definitely just meant to just continue the story in a very small incremental way, but at still the same time managing to deliver some very big headway. Also, I apologize if I'm scratching my beard too much. Well, not my beard, but like my facial hair. It's getting itchy. I think I might shave it off this week, so you'll see me more clean shaven next week. So with that being said, let's go for the Butcher recap and talk about this week's episode of Nancy Drew. So I ironically paused this episode 2 minutes in because I was on a phone call with a friend of mine, so I missed the first 2 minutes. I am not entirely sure how they kicked off this episode per se. I'm pretty sure it was just continuing the scene from Ace and his brother, whose name is Grant, from where we left over last week. So I think that was where we probably started it off, and then I managed to pause it in when Ace and Grant were talking about like what was the next step for them. So for me, it picks up in the car. I don't know if it's Ace's car or Grant's car. I think it's Ace's car. And they're talking about, like, why is he in town? So it turns out something's happening with the whole reason why he and his mother are in witness protection. And and obviously Grant needs some help. He needs some real help. And Ace is like, you need my help? The hero of Horseshoe Bay? And he's like, no, I need Nancy. And I think she'll be more convincing to join along in this case if Ace was the one who was pleading it to her, which honestly does work. This wasn't a Drew crew mystery this week. Everyone else had their own different storylines, so Nancy and Ace were the only ones on deck for this one. Everyone else had their own things going on, so I'm gonna go through their storylines because they do not intersect at all with this particular storyline. For once, they actually don't really share that many scenes. To be honest, I don't think Nancy's even doesn't even talk to them this entire episode, which is kind of weird, but it does make sense because, like, you don't have to include everyone and everything. Unlike Riverdale, which, sad to say, is returning back to its old problems that I had criticism of the last three seasons before this one. I like it when like the whole group is together, and we've gotten so much of that I'm perfectly fine with once in a while we get like some storylines, like they don't have to include all 5 of them, like they can do their own things. So for Nick, he's continuing the Tiffany's final case against the Hudsons to bring them down. So he's been getting in touch with this old acquaintance and another person that Tiffany got acquainted to that knows more of the secrets than he's letting on, that could be a big bullet against Hudson overall in the end. But he's going to meet him at the food festival, which is, jumping ahead a little bit, like it's a little bit too packed for my taste. It kind of reminds me of pre-COVID times. And again, I know we are getting vaccines, and I'm pretty sure this was being filmed around the time the vaccines were beginning to get in, but I feel a little uncomfortable on this. I mean, yeah, we got in some big scenes in other shows that I've seen before, but I don't know. This kind of feels like way too pre-COVID for my taste, but whatever. So he's meeting him there. He lets George know what's going on, so they're not involved in each other's storylines that much, but they're, boyfriend and girlfriend, so they're filling in on each other on the aspects of their other storylines. So Nick goes up to the food festival to meet Ryan and his fellow business acquaintance, which also Ryan wants to include Nick in, but Nick goes all around the festival, doesn't really find anyone that fits the bill of this saint that supposedly has all this like big information that could destroy the Hudsons forever. He hasn't been able to find them. He drops in on George time to time and trying to get like who could it be and that sort of thing, and then eventually he realizes that one of the guys that he was originally introduced to by Ryan is I think he's part of, his alma mater was the college that Nick was going to go to had his whole criminal thing not happen with him going to juvie for 2 years. So when he finds out about that, it turns out the name of the football team was called the Saints. So this all ties in together, and he does admit that, yeah, he is the Saint, and he was originally not trying to reach out to Nick because he was introduced as a friend to Ryan, which kind of scared him off a bit. But once Nick manages to calm him down a little bit, he gets the information he wants. So it turns out Ryan, inadvertently in his younger age, signed some paperwork that kind of was setting himself up for a downfall should the head patriarch, the Mr. Everett, I forgot his name already. Everett, yeah, Everett Hudson decides to ever like take him out of the picture should he become a viable threat. So he's had a lot of incriminating detail, which is an exact match to Ryan's signature because it was signed by Ryan, but he's not going to prove in court that like, oh, like you should have read it. That's going to basically destroy his credibility in court. So yeah, Ryan is basically screwed since if Ryan does go public, he could end up being set up as a scapegoat as well. So this is not going to bode well for their own investigations going forward. As for George, Bess, and George's sister, which I forgot her name, they're off competing in this in the food festival itself to make the best clam chowder. Which, to be completely honest, I'm not a big fan of clam chowder, nor I never had it. So I'm just gonna say I'm not a big fan. So I'm gonna stick it to there. George is morally focused. It's nice for George to have like a nice human slice of life thing to deal with this week, because last week she was losing her memory a lot. She nearly died so many times on top of like everything else going on. It was nice for her to like just deal with like a normal human problem for once. It was so nice. But the only problem was that her sister has become a bit more of like a environmentalist and a more of like a I'm not trying to be a soulful, but like she's very selective on killing clams who are apparently living beings. I just don't know how they live, to be honest with you. Which does kind of make her like get away from the whole affair involved in cooking the damn thing. Also, apparently Odette is starting to get more feelings for Bess as she's starting to leave ghost letters, i.e., letters when she's in control of George's body to Bess, indicating that like these two are beginning to have some real romantic feelings, despite the fact that Odette's still in George's body. So how's that going to play out? I don't know. So, and even Bess is at a moment, like, she's, like, really interested in it, and she thought that Odette was in charge for a second of George and was about to start flirting with her, but then George turned around like, nope, I'm not Odette. She doesn't know it's an Odette, but she's still her, so it doesn't bode well for Bess. Later on at the food festival, when the clam chowder's done, they're serving it up. It seems to be a big hit. I believe. No, yeah. The next big development was, I believe, yeah. So while they're kind of like in a lull, I think they just ran out of clam chowder. George was looking at some letters that he was looking at a box of supplies they brought along from the claw, and in that box was a letter that Bess wrote to Odette in hopes that Odette would find it once she was back in control. So yeah, it turns out George is not entirely happy since, like, again, George is the one in control here, but Odette's just living in the body. And so they can't really have a romantic relationship. And even Bess is not 100% down with it anymore, since apparently with everything that happened with the Marvins and everything that happened with obviously Elizabeth, that Bess's life is not great so far. It's not, and she just, all she wants was like, I mean, hey, Odette is, I guess she likes Odette, so why not, just explore something with this, just to kill some time, have some purpose in life again, which she's not wrong to be exploring that. I'm just saying, like, again, like it is a ghost, so it's not gonna end so well since also George is mainly in control and she's with Nick. So how do you balance those two things out? You can't really, you really can't. And of course, also before I continue that, they won the festival and they won the grand prize. And while Bess and George were briefly celebrating, Odette takes over again, was about to start, I believe, just being close to Bess, but Bess is like, no, we can't do this, you gotta stop, and stop it there. And also there was like a running joke that George's grandma had this old fashioned clam chowder recipe that would have definitely won them the contest, and it turns out a former disgruntled chef who was stealing crackers apparently stole the recipe, and George's sister managed to get it back. So they're kind of dead set for next year to like dominate the competition. So that was pretty nice, I guess. All well that ends well. Now into the big storyline this week, which was Nancy, Ace, and Grant's quest to figure out what's going on with this Grant's mother thing. She's in trouble, and I believe, I'm not quite sure what happened. I think they got separated. I forgot what the backstory was per se, but I know there was something involving Grant's mom that he has to get saved. So they have to look for this mysterious thing that Grant's mom left behind in Horseshoe Bay before she left. That could be the key to like figuring all this out. And I believe they had a lead somewhere at an old name location that Nancy supposedly solved the big case back in the day when she was like, I believe, 2-3 years ago. So they renamed the location, which had a storm cellar, which is probably where Grant's mom left it. So they both go off to go get their supplies. Nancy also ropes in her father into potentially trying to get even more information about the case, seeing like is there anything else? What are the stakes here that we need to know about? So Mr. Drew, now back in his house, he's like, okay, sure, you know what? You're allowing me to live in my own house again. I will help you with this case, and also, please remember, you're still my part-time investigator. So I'm really hoping you remember that, considering the fact that this week, again, Nancy does not work at any of her 3 jobs, not the Claw, not at her dad's, or not at the freaking morgue. I mean, do we just forget about those things? Like, is Nancy just a free agent? I don't know. Also, before Nancy is able to meet up with Ace and Grant, she meets up with her grandma, Ryan's mother, about the whole, like, what's to do now in order to earn Everett's trust. And the grandma, I forgot, Mrs. Hudson says, like, hey, look, the only way you're going to get his trust is to basically amend your statement to the point that your testimony is not going to give him a silver bullet, so Everett doesn't have to go to jail, which is at a big crossroads, since if Nancy doesn't do it, she might die at some point via hitman. But if she does, the whole thing about season 1 is going to mean nothing, since Everett was the one who did all this. So that's going to be a big flaw. So Nancy is being she's at a crossroads here, because like she cares about her life, but she also doesn't want to ruin whatever mystery she saw before and destroy her credibility. But it's a big issue, and she doesn't give her a direct answer there. Ace and Grant hit up his garage to see if they can get some tools. They run into Ace's mom, and then eventually Ace's dad, who also is Grant's dad. It's a bit of a weird like first meeting for them, since like Ace's dad never knew he impregnated Grant's mother, and before you said this wasn't an affair type thing, because apparently this was being done way before Ace's dad and his mom ever met. So it's perfectly legit to be, to have a child with someone else, because he didn't know about it. So you can't really be faulted there, to be honest with you. But they get their tools, and they leave. They meet up with Nancy. They head up to the storm cellar. The storm place, whatever you want to call it. And after looking around, they find this ancient device that conveniently looks like a Nintendo DS, which, I mean, I'm pretty sure it was a Nintendo DS. For me, it kind of looked like a Nintendo DS. So I'm like, it's not that ancient, and this guy's like 20 something. So DSs were not around back in 2000. So what was it exactly? I really don't know. It looks like a DS to me. But coincidentally, once they get this device, the roof of the cellar caves in, and Ace is trapped on one side, Nancy and Grant are trapped on the other side. They make this makeshift lift to try and get themselves out. Initially, Grant was a little bit scared that he might get crushed by this, but because of Ace's words of motivation. Grant manages to cross over and safely gets to the other side. And I believe from there, where do we go? Oh yeah, they head back to Nancy's house. They also get footage from, courtesy of Mr. Drew, who visited the attorney that is also handling the Everett case. And there's a bit of sparks going on between Mr. Drew and this attorney. There's some sparks going here. I'm not sure. I mean, it's been a while, so I think Mr. Drew's ready to like get back out there in the dating world. I mean, I know he did already, but like you know what I mean. So he gets some videos, which apparently releases that at the time Grant's mom and a bunch of other employees were involved in a pretty illegal thing that a business that they were working for was performing, and they blabbed to them to the proper authorities. And because these people, the business were very dangerous people, they were put into witness protection, and they were just moving ever since. So the device, they think, has the real names of everyone that testified against them. However, before they can access it, it's locked by a riddle. I forgot the riddle, but it requires 5 digits, 5 letters to unlock it. They don't know how to open it up, so they're trying to think like, well, who else would know? And they think, who else was close to the mother? Ace's dad. So they had to go to the food festival to go and get him so they could figure it out. So they head there, and Ace basically pulls him aside for a moment and admits to him, look, I know you have another child. I know you had love for another woman before mom. She does have a son, and we need to figure out something that she may have left behind that could pertain to her safety. So Ace's dad is more than willing to cooperate and just says like, this is just this was a lyric from a song that we listened to on our last day together before they separated us. And so the code turned out to be their final date together, and it works. It unlocks them, and it reveals all their real identities, and I believe locations as well. But while Ace is taking a moment to, for some weird reason, he just separates himself away from Nancy and Grant and goes to call them from a distance. He also gets kidnapped by someone, so Nancy and Grant receive a call from the kidnapper saying that, hey, you're going to give me the device or Ace is going to die. And I sort of go, what is with Ace and almost dying? Can we not have one season where Ace doesn't die or almost dies? Like, it's getting annoying for me by this point. Yeah, so they're trying to figure out what to do, and they have to figure out a way to get Ace back, but also they can't give up the name. So it's a hard road that Nancy now has to cross, and her solution is to sadly appease the bull and contact her grandma, Mrs. Hudson, into helping them into trying to get Ace back, as well as to keep the device. And she agrees on an obvious condition, so they do that. They head over to this steel mill section place. I don't really know where they are. They find Ace being tangled up and hanging over a ledge. The guys is holding him by a rope, and if they move any closer than comfortable limits for him, then he's going to drop Ace. Eventually, yeah, so I forgot how this conversation went, even though I just saw it like 20 minutes ago, but there's an even bigger conspiracy going around, but they give the device to him, and he gives them Ace. So they manage to save him, and also Nancy manages to calm down Ace and tell him that I had to contact my grandma, Mrs. Hudson. She's going to be able to give us his device back, and manages to not make it a loss, since like she doesn't want him to die. That was the more important thing. And obviously Nancy did make the right call there, so I give it to her. So we cut back. Somehow, yeah, they get the device back, and they re-encrypted it and made it more stronger than ever. So this is going to provide them a base for what their next move is. But however, Grant tells Ace that he has to move again. It turns out witness protection is moving yet again, so he needs to get away from Horseshoe Bay, but Ace is more determined than ever that they're going to stay in touch and be stronger together now that, they've now really acquainted with each other, and, there's now something that's keeping them bonded together for now with the whole matter with Grant's mom, so that's another thing. But before this episode ends, Ace manages to set up a first meeting between his dad and Grant. It's very sweet. Because, this isn't your typical secret love child thing, because there was nothing secret about it, since legit Ace's dad didn't know, which is a fair thing to give him an excuse for. And second, he was never a bad dude. He never cheated on his wife. This was just a love that he had, a forbidden love he had before meeting his wife, and it just turned out like that. And he's nothing to blame here, and all he has is just genuine like remorse, and leaving out of it, being left out of Grant's life. But now, having met him, is like, yeah, this is a nice moment. This was a very nice, touching moment, and hopefully Grant will be able to come back fairly soon, for some reason. And Nancy sadly has to keep up her end of the bargain, and she goes to the attorney and tells her, like, I need to amend my statement, indicating that she is going to change her statement so that Everett can walk, which ends the episode. So, yeah, I really like this week's episode. I think it was very emotional for the Ace brothers. I know, like, technically they have another name, and I get that, but like, I want to call them the Ace brothers. I like that name, like the Ace, like Ace Grant Ace. No, I'm just gonna go with Ace brothers. It just flows up the tongue better. I'm really curious to see how the Everett thing's gonna turn out next, since now that he's out, like, is Nancy gonna try and like slither into the Hudson, like the evil corporation? Is she gonna fall victim of it? I hope not, because it seems like she had to like really sacrifice the right thing just so that they could save Ace. So hopefully that was the right call to make. Will Bess and Odette share a kiss? I don't know. I kind of really, I would like that for now, and like just to really have it like tore up Nick, since like technically Bess would be kissing George, but it's another feat too long. And I'm really curious to see how Ryan's going to handle that now that he knows that his father is basically setting him up for fall in case something does happen. So we'll see how that turns out as well. And I believe, yeah, I think that's it for this week. Nothing really much to say. I give this episode 2 thumbs up. I really did enjoy it. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think of this week's episode of Nancy Drew? I'm always open to conversation down there below, so please leave a comment. I'll talk back. But I think that's going to do it for me tonight, everyone. So if you're unaware, this has been What's in the Tube from ActionX, reviewing every episode of the 2nd season of Nancy Drew. If you want to see more of What's in the Tube, we're also doing Walker episode reviews each and every Friday mornings after a brand new episode on Thursday nights on the CW, and free the next day on the CW app. We're also doing Rookie Season 3 episode reviews each and every Monday morning after a brand new episode on Sunday nights on ABC or on Hulu the next day. But if you don't care about Nancy Drew, you're in luck. We'll be back next week with another episode. However, after that, we're going on a brief 2-week hiatus, which, oof, looks like my thing finally. Yeah, this is what I get for untightening my thing. This is now loose as hell. Oh boy, I gotta fix this later. Alright, sorry about that. What was I saying? Yeah, so we're going on a 2-week hiatus after that, so we'll talk more about What's in the Tube from then. But until then, again, this has been What's in the Tube from ActionX. If you want to see more of us, please subscribe to ActionX on youtube.com/ActionX. Ring that bell for notification when our next episode review is live for Nancy Drew, which is each and every Thursday mornings. Like, favorite, share this review if you want to. It helps us get us out there to other members of the Drew Crew fandom. Helps us out figuring out that YouTube algorithm that still confuses me to this day. And sharing is always for free. Like, follow us on social media to be up to date with any sort of updates for the channel. Follow us on Twitch. But until next time, for all you members of the Drew Crew, I'll see you all next week for the next episode review. But until then, stay safe out there, be good to each other, and as always, peace out.